Now back to Sin City and My Guys in the Desert with the legend Brent Musburger, live on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, SiriusXM Channel 204, and VSiN.com.
Well, Vinny, it isn't often that we can welcome in a guest who was portrayed by Bruce Willis in a movie, okay? As we welcome in Alan Denkenson, and Willis played a character based on Dink's life back in 2012. You saw the movie Lay the Favorite. Are you still laying the favorites, Dink?
About 50% of the time.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, Brent?
Great. I know former director, first director ever of the NFL today, as a matter of fact. Great friend of mine, Bob Fishman. He just did a terrific job on the Final Four. How is Fish? Is he still betting the horses down there?
Yeah, we go to the track sometimes when he's around, and I'll meet him at Del Mar. He'll meet me at Gulfstream. And,
yeah, he always
trying to get him
the
to come to
horses.
Saratoga.
Yeah, his father was a bettor. His father would bet football, baseball, and Bob picked up on it, and yeah, he loved it.
His father holds a record for like the biggest fish caught in the Virgin Islands or something. Like
Yeah, he was big time fisherman down there. Yeah, as I recall now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I too had a little doubt about the Golden Knights when they came into existence and this run started. Were you one of those who not a believer at first last year?
I wasn't a believer for far too long. With that.
I hear ya.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
But I did know that the draft the draft for new expansion teams rules changed a lot. So I knew that Marchessault was a really good player. Neal was a decent player. They got Fleury because Pittsburgh had to give up either Fleury or Murray, so they had an A goalie. It wasn't like that in the days when the Caps first came in and would lose 75-80% of their games. So I did bet over the season total, which was 64, by far the lowest total last year. Mm-hmm. So that was a winner, but I was zigged and zagged so wrong with that team. When I finally thought they were in a good spot, they would lose, and I bucked them a few times more than I should have.
How about against the Capitals in the Stanley Cup final?
I bet small on the Capitals, but I lost. I bet against them while they were getting there too. So I thought all of a sudden they were the favorite against a better team than they were. I thought. Didn't understand that line because people just thought they were Cinderella and they had to win. I think they were 30 cents higher because of the Cinderella story, and it finally. I'm a numbers guy, so it tipped me to betting Washington a little. But after getting battered so much with that team, I didn't want to really make another big bet and lose it. So it was a smaller bet.
So it comes now full circle this year. What's your
this year? I don't think they're nearly as good. Which is kind of the right opinion. I think they're bettable tonight because the other team has really lost their way.
Yeah, they have. I agree with you, Dink.
And I think that the Knights are somewhat better, but not that much better. And I'm looking forward to betting against them in the next series if they get there.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that next series, they could have home ice. If Colorado wins, they would have home ice against the Avalanche.
I'm expecting that to happen, and I'm expecting Colorado to be a good bet against them.
Well,
they'll be a good.
They're just beating a team that I think isn't good anymore, and they, just like San Jose, they went into the tank in the last 5 or 6 games of the season. So the coach of Tampa Bay, Cooper, said that he wishes that Tampa had more meaningful games to play before the playoffs started. They were locked in a spot. And San Jose and Vegas also were locked in a spot. And I think watching that game, I'm saying, how do you give up so many good chances back and forth, even though they're getting the little bit better chances and they have a much better goalie? That if you do this against Colorado, it's not going to be that pretty for you because San Jose is just not that good anymore. I don't know why, because I thought they were a team to beat, like I'm going into March. Mm-hmm. But by the end of March, they were just lost. And Carlson, I really believe, Erik Karlsson's playing hurt.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I'm a big. In fact, Vinny, I talked to you.
You said that yesterday. You said it the other night at watching the game.
I said this is not the Erik Karlsson that I remember.
He did this 3 years ago with Ottawa too. He came back from an injury and actually just wrecked them. He couldn't move, but it's not that dramatic this time. But he's still not helping them, and he's been on goal for almost all of the Knights' goals.
Yeah, every time they score, Karlsson's out there. Yeah. He doesn't intercept anybody.
Yeah, so it hurts them more than helps them.
The one thing, Dink, I do think, though, where the Golden Knights have improved when they picked up Stone, I do like the Stasny line, Passaretti and Stone.
That's their best
They
line.
do create Now, I know technically, I guess they still call the Carlson line number one, but the Stastny line is
the
clearly
one that's producing.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Number one scoring line in the postseason, right?
That's
so far in the
product
league.
of
So,
higher
but that
scoring
could
games.
could change.
That could never happen to
quickly.
the Islanders' number one line. But
Jones has contributed to that.
And Jones may as well be on that line if you ask some.
I thought they would start Del Sanders.
I thought so too.
So we.
With you.
Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really shocked. He had a big drill a writer was in watching, and they worked him through some drills, which is not necessarily a good thing because I went to the, with my grandson, took him over to the Knights practice yesterday before they left. And the regulars didn't even come out. It was a voluntary skate. You know, Subban, backup goalie, came out and worked for a while. But San Jose, they worked Jones out. He had the hardest workout of anybody of the Sharks when they got back home. You know,
I can't believe he'll come up stellar, but
no,
Mike Smith was going into this series as a liability, and he's been the best player for Calgary. So you can never handicap a goalie. They can always come up
He had a great game last night, even though they lost.
Oh God, he's had a great series. He's been the reason that they're not done already.
Now, Dink, I see that Carolina has jumped out on Washington again here in the first period, 13-25, up 1-0. Mike Palm liked the Hurricanes tonight. He's one of his palm readers' plays. What's your feeling about over there on the East? The Lightning's gone, the Penguins are gone, and suddenly the Capitals are facing a little adversity here.
Yeah, if Carolina gets what an amazing sport hockey is. In the best of 7 series, it almost starts dead even, and the whole season doesn't matter anymore. It's hard to tell for me on the East. I don't think Washington looks all that great. I like Carolina, but they're a team that always has these great analytics and just doesn't put the puck in the net.
Right.
They blame it on puck luck, but this is the 4th year running that they say they have bad puck luck. I just don't think they have the finishers. But they dominated Game 3, and I made a small bet on them in this game. I think these teams are kind of equal now.
Yeah. You know, Vinny, we talk so much about Tampa Bay, and we talk to the writer and their collapse. Everything with da-da-da-da-da. I failed to really emphasize that's the first playoff series that Columbus has ever won. You know, a Columbus, we now have to, I think, swing around and start to give the Blue Jackets a little more credit.
No question, Brent. I mean, everybody talks about the President's Trophy winners and that collapse and getting swept, but full credit for Columbus for what they accomplished. They did a great job, and that's a team. Again, you think back. Around the trade deadline, Panarin and Bobrovsky are talking. They still have not signed.
Right.
They're going to be free agents at the end. They made it very clear that they fully intended to test the free agent waters during the offseason. But full marks to Columbus for what they've accomplished, and not only winning that series, but in sweeping the record-setting Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of them playing the best hockey they've played all season, and Tampa Bay for sure playing the worst hockey they've played all season.
True.
Hockey's a game of confidence, and Game 1, I think you could excuse what happened, but in Game 2, Tampa Bay saw themselves losing and went into beast mode and tried to hit and intimidate, and that they didn't need to do that because they still are the better team, and they just started playing individually instead of as a team. They gave up chances. There was no defenseman ever in front of the net to protect rebounds. It was an amazingly different team. If this was the start of next season, you go, oh, Tampa Bay is just not good this year. But it started in the first round of the playoffs, and I think it snowballed into where they were desperate and they thought they would have to do different things. And you never have. Don't get off your game in hockey. Don't make all these changes and don't change your style. I think that's what happened to them. I didn't bet most of those games, and I had a small bet on the loser in the series. So I laid $3.20, which I think was the cheapest price ever that came around. It didn't surprise me when they started losing, but it didn't. I guess it surprised me, but it didn't shock me that an 8 seed, which is not really that far from a 2 seed, they're not that different than the Islanders. They're not in my power ratings. Tampa Bay was first, and a glut of teams are second.
Yeah. Speaking of the Islanders, then you weren't that surprised when they took
they play hockey right. They play those kind of games, and they just shut Pittsburgh down like no other team. But the other teams that played the 2-1 games, Dallas and the Islanders, and we'll see how far they can go playing those games. But Pittsburgh is a good team, and if Tampa's out, and I guess they're the number 1 seed, maybe Boston if they beat Toronto, it's really close. And all 4 of the teams that move on in the East can move on to the finals.
Yeah, I agree. I think the East became very wide.
How good are the Boston-Toronto games? If you watch those games, that's a better sport than anything else by so much.
Alan Denkenson is with us, and Dink, to your point about the Maple Leafs, I finally found a ticket more expensive than a Golden Knights. Standing room last night for Toronto was $350 a ticket. Okay, now that you really want to see that guy, $350, and that building. I was listening to the Toronto announcer and he's just sensational. He's been around forever, and he's so passionate about hockey and knows it so well. And the building was electric. I mean, you could hear it in there with that crowd because they make a late run to get themselves back in it, and they've got 5 minutes when they can tie it up, and they don't get it done, but. It was a great, great hockey game. The rest of the Bruins and the Maple Leaf series is going to be sensational.
You know, Brent, we went to the Bruins. The Leafs game here. A lot of
I was at that game.
The Canadian fans do travel. All the Canadian teams always have a good representation here at T-Mobile.
You lived in that weather, you'd travel too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, my friend. I know I love you up there.
But Toronto,
that's a cheap shot.
They were great. There was a lot of Maple Leafs fans.
I went to that game. I bet Vegas, which lost, and I was the only person in my row rooting for Vegas. The entire row was white and blue.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you know what was interesting? Arlene made the observation the other night, Vinny, at the game. She didn't see many San Jose jerseys there.
There are more.
In fact, that was the fewest road jerseys I think I'd ever seen.
That's interesting.
But quite a few. You'll see more Knights jerseys
in San
Jose tonight than Sharks jerseys at T-Mobile.
Last year, I went to Game 3 in San Jose because the airfare, the hotel, and the game ticket was cheaper than the night ticket. And I thought it was a cool thing to do.
I said to Arlene, we're going to Vancouver to watch the Knights, okay? Vancouver's a great city anyway, and love to go up there. Dink, what do you make of the St. Louis Blues? Mike Palm has a little bit of a future ticket on them. He fell in love with Bennington.
I have that too. I think every sharp guy in hockey has a future ticket on them.
You guys all got it.
They all took, I have 40-1 to win the conference and 80-1 to win the cup.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys?
Do you bet every day in the National Hockey League? Tell me what your strategy is.
That's what I do.
That's your.
Somebody says, "What do you do?" I'd say, "I bet hockey."
That's great.
I have a.
How good is this? Okay.
So, Alan,
now what about that first period when it ran wild on the overs this year? There was that.
I didn't do that. I thought that was juiced up enough. You know, it's easy to go over 1.5 in blackout games and go. Over 1.5 minus 200. That's not that's not the same thing as over 1.5.
I love you, Dink.
It's
awesome.
Now, I of course I know Alan Brent since he came to town in the mid 90s.
Gail, my wife,
days
at
Caesars, and your wife worked there, and Alan used to come in. So, talk a little bit about your approach because you do analyze. But it's not necessarily all analytics.
It's both.
Break down a little bit of both.
I grade every game. I give them. I'm like a professor. If one team gets a B minus, the other team gets a C plus.
Interesting.
I rate it on. A lot of it is on scoring chances and shots on goal as the score is close. In the third period, shots on goal don't mean that much because it's kind of like a football game where a quarterback gets all these passing yards in the fourth quarter because the team is down 14. A lot of teams down 2 or 3 will get more shots on goal because the object of the other team, the team that's leading, is not to give up good shots. They're willing to give up bad shots and not get much offensive in because they're playing not to give up good shots. So those shots are a little less meaningful than the shots in the first period or a second period that's 2-2 or 2-1.
So
I grade everything, and I keep track of injuries. I'm really like, Toronto's missing 2 players this game. I don't want to give them a C plus, so I'll give them an even. Even is like
interesting
when 2 teams play, in my opinion, pretty close to the Mets.
You watch games live and then some of the tapes the next day?
I don't watch tapes. I watch live.
Okay.
I have 4 TVs, and I have the hockey package, so I can see up to 4 games at the same time. I kind of like to watch 1 or 2. If 4 gets confusing, you're all over the place.
That's a lot.
You're looking to see who just scored and who's celebrating because you were watching another TV anyway. So it's good to watch the ones you care about.
With the hockey package, would you prefer to watch the local broadcast or the national on NBC? Do you find it? Some people find differences.
Well, Emmerich is so good that I just want to watch him if I'm watching hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, I don't really care.
Got it.
The sound the announcing isn't that important to me.
What do you make of the NHL channel? NHL has their own.
215 on DirecTV.
Yeah.
I like that channel, but they're showing goals. They're
exactly.
recaps
like the
for
Green
goals.
Zone, right?
But they have good information in the afternoon. But I listen more to Sirius Radio, the hockey channel.
That's a very good channel, by the way.
Yeah,
Barry Trotz was up there this afternoon. I was listening a little bit as I was driving down to work, and what a job he's done with the Islanders.
Yeah, I think he's the reason Washington won last year, and Islanders are playing good
Absolutely, and look at the Capitals are under pressure right now. I mean, the one win they got, so Ovechkin's knockout.
Yeah, they played better than I thought this season because of the minus Trotz. I actually had an under against them in the season wins, which lost. Too.
Now, listen, Dink, I know that your other love is horse racing.
Okay.
So I'm going to have Mr. Flatter come in here and give an update. Okay, I want you to stay right with us, okay?
Okay. I also want to plug the horse rescue that I...
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. We want to talk about that because I may know some people up in Montana that got some real estate. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Dink? Okay.
Cool.
And Vinny, and we'll be right back live. VSiN.com, Sirius XM 204.
It's My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Keep up to date with everything in the world of sports gaming by going online at VSiN.com.
VSiN last week. Here's some of what you missed.
Did you hedge it all? I mean, you're unbelievable. Croatia 66-1 in the World Cup. They get to the championship. Watford to win the FA Cup 60-1. They're in the championship. Frankfurt to win Europa 33-1, although they got beat yesterday. Did you hedge or take the cash out option on any of these?
Oh, no. Hedging's for gardens. I always think, I'm not, unless there's something drastically goes wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, they're playing Manchester City in the final of the FA Cup. How can I hedge? I've got to have a huge amount of money on Manchester City to cover my position. So,
some folks have trouble understanding that in the very same baseball game, you're looking at two teams where the value shifted on them. And so what it was a good bet earlier, then the good bet was on the complete opposite team. And when people come at sports just thinking about the teams themselves, they have trouble, first-time bettors do, wrapping their heads around that concept.
What a fantastic subject.
Yes.
I still think he's going to be back. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back at some point next season.
You think so, huh? It's interesting. He's 37
the
now.
The thing is, retirement's always appealing to people until they get into retirement.
Yeah.
And then once you get into about, 6 months, a year into it, you're like, damn, this is boring. I can't play golf every day. You just can't sit on the beach and drink. I'm getting sick of sitting around with my family. I'm going to go back and play. We go back to play basketball. I still have the ability. And at some point next year, I think D-Wade's going to say, I still got it. I can come back and play. And maybe LeBron talks him back to come play with the Lakers.
They're not getting free agents.
Who knows? Something like that.
Dwayne Wade could be their top-tier signing in the offseason.
And the comeback by Columbus against Tampa. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they've got to be thinking to themselves now. I mean, that's a team, anything less than hoisting the cup is a disappointment for a team that wins 62 games. And I'm going to tell you right now, the pressure is on. Do we have a number out for their second game tomorrow?
We do have.
Down in Tampa. They got to be a pretty substantial favorite, I know. But
250.
Okay.
250. Remember, they bet him up last night. They got as high as 270.
You hear what Mike Palm said about Bobrovsky?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when he gets hot, man, he can stay hot, and that would be great.
I'm Ron Flatter with your VSiN Action Update. Philadelphia 76ers coach Brett Brown did again tonight what he did just before Game 2 of their NBA playoff series with the Nets. He just told reporters that Joel Embiid remains a game-time decision with that sore knee. Game time is in a half hour at Brooklyn, where the Sixers are 4-point favorites to take a 2-1 series lead over the Nets. In two other one-all series, the San Antonio Spurs are 4.5-point favorites, hosting the Denver Nuggets. The LA Clippers, 9-point home underdogs against the Golden State Warriors. Baseball, the Yankees, $2 favorites at home against Kansas City, but the Royals got the jump, and in the top of the fourth, it's Kansas City 3, New York 1. Baltimore at Tampa Bay, the Rays, $2.60 favorites, and for the 15th time in 19 games, there was a first-inning run in that game, and the Rays scored it, and quickly. Top of the second, it is Tampa Bay 1, Baltimore nothing. In a half hour, Jose Urias and the Dodgers are dime favorites, calling on Zach Davies and Milwaukee. This afternoon, Detroit beat the White Sox in a pick'em game, 9-7. Toronto upset the Twins, 7-4. Arizona was an upset winner over the Braves, 4-1. Favored Washington, a 4-2 winner over the Giants. Stanley Cup playoffs, Washington at Carolina, with the Capitals trying to take a 3-1 series lead. But right now, it is there are other ideas for Carolina as they got the 20-cent favorites roll and the first goal of the game. Under 6 to go in the first period. Hurricanes 1, Capitals nothing. In the West, Vegas is a 15-cent favorite tonight to advance with a win at San Jose. Winnipeg, 25 cents to take a 3-2 series lead, hosting St. Louis. It doesn't sound like much, but Jacksonville Jaguars VP Tom Coughlin may have violated an NFL rule when he said, all of our players should be here. Here is a voluntary off-season workout. Players Union President Eric Winston said that a formal complaint may be filed with the league. If you're looking for an edge in betting baseball, then VSiN is a great start. Our baseball page has exclusive angles just for our subscribers, like projected lines and totals, team and player trends, pitching matchups, even umpire statistics. An important bonus for subscribers, already getting full access to our video, plus Point Spread Weekly. Find out what you're missing. Get free access to your first baseball game of the day. Go to vsin.com/MLB. Dink is back with Vinny and Brent right here on VSiN.
Now back to Sin City and My Guys in the Desert with the legend Brent Musburger, live on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, SiriusXM Channel 204, and VSiN.com.
Well, this segment is brought to you by PointsBet, New Jersey's premium sports book. They have the best promos out there, including an amazing offer for the continuing NBA playoffs. Place a moneyline bet on any NBA team, and if your team is up after the third quarter, they'll pay you out instantly, even if your team goes on to lose. Now be sure to sign up with the code VSiN. You'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $1,000. Again, that code is VSiN. Don't miss out on the action. Download the app on iOS and Android today. New Jersey only. Must be 21 years or older. Additional terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. PointsBet, stay sharp. And indeed, we are with Alan Denkenson, a professional sports bettor, and Mr. Ron Flatter has stuck with us because we are changing the subject to horse racing with the Kentucky Derby quickly closing in. Gentlemen, it looks to me like it's Omaha Beach versus Mr. Baffert's trio.
The Baffert trifecta?
Let's start with you, my friend. What are your feelings?
I'm looking at a horse called By My Standards. It's only raced 3 times, improved a lot each time. Won a race with what looked like a good trip, but he was so on the bit behind the front runners that I thought it was going to have nothing left at the end, but he finally got through, accelerated on the inside, which is a hard thing to do, and I thought he was much the best, and he took another step forward and one more step forward. I think he might be the best horse in that race.
Should get a pretty good price on him.
I think so. I think he'll be like 6th or 7th choice. Yeah. The horse that beat Improbable, Omaha Beach, made a great middle move and looked Improbable in the face. And then you have to ask yourself, Baffert, did he have Improbable as the best he could be? Was he just trying to get some points and get in? Will he get more cranked up for the Derby? I don't know. Those things that makes racing so hard when trainers are so much better than other trainers. And it's not the feed, it's something.
I'll tell you what, though, with By My Standards, he's a mid-pack horse, and I just did a breakdown. I don't know if you look at the Kieran speed points. If you use the Brisnet figures, there's little numbers and letters up in the corner by the horse's name. They got an E and a P and an S and a 0 through 8. There's some sense to that. That helps you figure out the pace of the race. And since they went to the point system at the Kentucky Derby, EP horses, those are pace chasers, have tended to win. So that falls right into the lap of a horse like Maximum Security. Okay. The big question is, what kind of pace will we get in the Derby? And I think that's a big question. Omaha Beach could set it, but I was just talking to their racing manager this week, and he says, not so fast, my friend.
Well, I think, Ron, that's always, and that's a question we asked on several of the Derby prep races. I also believe you could, there's a school of thought too that post positions are going to have something a lot to say, really, not only, with strategy, but with pace and everything like that. So, but to those kinds of horses, right? The Allens, by my standards, you want the Baffert trio of Roadster, Game Winner, and Improbable to draw as much money as possible to give your horse a better, the Bill Mott entry, Country House and Tacitus. So if you're not, sometimes it's not just about who you want, who you like, but who you don't like, so that there's a better price, especially in a race like the Derby, Alan, with 20 horses and that liquidity of the field, which you wish was in all races. You want them to draw the action.
I know you have to give out a horse, but I tend to bet head-to-head matchups. I really
those are great.
So I'm looking for a horse mid-pack horse that will go forward and past horses and heading backwards. That's what I'm always looking for.
By the way, you like by my standards enough to bet him here. 25-1 at the Westgate, 32-1 right now at William Hill.
I will make a wager at William Hill.
Gee, way to go.
Well done, Ron Flatter.
He worked a half mile in 48 4/5 at Churchill Downs, but what was most impressive, said this observer, his gallop out. Hugged the rail, continued to pick up speed, and was still into the bit well down the backstretch. He was quite the picture, galloping to the pole with his neck arched in regal splendor. My friend, bet early and bet often. Okay,
Early and often.
Dink, that leads us to something that's very near and dear to you, of course. We're talking about the best of the best going forward to the Kentucky Derby, but there's a lot of thoroughbred horses that don't make it. And tell us about that charity.
Yeah, a lot of people tout for pocket money, and I tout for charity. Charity is Southern California Thoroughbred Rescue. The website is sctbrescue.org. I do something called the Dink Fund, and I give out a month's picks in hockey and some baseball picks for $200 a month. A little bit more if you bet a little bit more. I do have a couple of customers who now I see move the line a little, which is getting the best of the numbers too. And I put the 2 to 5 picks up every day right after I bet them. Sometimes I bet them at 1 in the morning. Sometimes I bet them at 5 minutes to post, but that's what I do. I also chase numbers. Like sometimes I'll find good numbers. I don't put those picks up because they're just because of numbers, not necessarily who I like. I was a bookmaker for so long. I just want to have the mathematical edge, whether as a bettor, which is a lot safer since I got a felony for the other approach, and now I do not want a felony. So I'm taking the edge by watching the screen for 8 hours a day and looking at little things and using all the apps and a couple of offshores that might be a little slower than other offshores. So I'm looking for numbers as well as having an opinion. So I will bet basketball and football, even though I don't know all that much about it to consider myself a professional handicapper, if I find a good number. And that's good enough for me. In hockey and baseball, I do handicap. I consider myself a handicapper. I will also bet if I find a good number and, just take an edge. Even if it's a 2% edge, I'll take it.
Sorry, what?
It's sctbrescue.org.
It's a wonderful site. If you want to get some of my picks, I am going on vacation for May and June, but I'll probably be back in July.
Not before the Derby.
For picks, I'm going to plug another person who doesn't tout and just would be a great guest, Paul Matisse.
Paul Matisse.
Love Paul.
He's won. Paul Matisse.
He's won the NHC, so his credibility is there.
Podcast, yeah.
He's
Very
brilliant.
good.
He's brilliant. He thinks outside the box. Every time he's on a show, I learn so much things from him. I sit next to him at Saratoga and just absorb the knowledge.
By the way, your charity, and there's certainly other ones. There's Old Friends. We know about other farms that are helping.
Mine's a smaller one. They take smaller horses.
But something, every one of them are contributing. And, for all the crisis that Santa Anita went through, it doesn't get reported. And what the activists don't tell you, of course, is that, only 0.2% of horses break down and suffer a catastrophic injury. Yes, it's too much. But the other thing that happens is these thoroughbreds are so well taken care of, and there's a growing number of charities that are looking after thoroughbreds after their racing days are over. So you're to be commended.
Yeah, I've been to Old Friends twice. I fed Silver Charm carrots. It was, Old Friends is cool, but Old Friends gets a lot of donors and donations. My charity is a smaller one. It's a nonprofit. The people really care about their horses, and
it's great.
I know it's a good one. I don't want to spread myself out and say they're better than the others, but I just know they're 100%, and I don't know how many others are. I'm sure a lot of them are. So a lot of them are good intended, but run by people who don't know how to finance a business, and fortunately, SCTB does know how to do that.
All right. Alan Denkenson with us here today. Dink, we want to thank you so very much, and we will keep SCT.
Okay. I'll give you one more pick.
Go ahead.
Over 6 flat in the Knights game tonight.
Over 6.
I get my money back because it didn't go over the other night, 6.5.
I didn't say to go over 6.5, did I?
No, you didn't. You said 6. What I love, man, is a man who pays attention, okay? Yeah, I like that. My ears perked up when he said over. Are we still at over 6 here, Vinny?
I think we
out
are.
here at the counter?
At least $1.30.
Okay, my man.
Ooh, I'll take some of that money I just won on the Rays first inning and do it on that, right?
Okay, good.
Ray scored again in the. Do you have a bet on Carolina and
I have a small bet on Carolina, but to be fair, I also have a small bet on Washington in the series.
You sound like John DeBarber.
Sometimes I'm willing to change my mind after I watch 3 games and go, I don't think Washington's better than Carolina.
Dink, thank you so much.
No, I enjoyed it.
Stay in
Thank
touch.
you so much.
Okay. We'll be back live. VSiN.com, Sirius XM 204.
It's My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Keep up to date